Hello, everybody, and welcome to another reading of the Great Exodus, or the Time of the End, on this Sunday, September 29th, 2019. And Jörg and Michael are both with me today, and we are going to continue in this chapter. I believe it is on the 3.5 times. Is that correct? Jörg, do you remember?
I don't recall what it is, but we are in the middle of chapter 13.
Chapter 13, okay.
Yeah, and that's where we're going to continue. That's where we left off yesterday. But let's first introduce our brother Michael to the recording today.
Hi.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Bret. Hi, Jörg. Thanks for having me. And as always, I want background with, I hope, some points to make, some valid comments.
There seems to be a bad connection because you fell away a little bit.
Oh, okay, I do.
Yeah, now it's all right, but
okay,
just with the first few words that you just spoke.
Mm-hmm.
Just that you're aware of. Okay, so are we going to get right into it?
We sure are. We're ready.
Okay. So it's this book that we are reading. You see, I have multiple PDFs on. I got to do a lot of things on Sunday, so let's concentrate now on the book, The Great Exodus. We are on page 190 in the PDF. And yeah, you were right. It speaks here about the 7 times. It speaks about all the times. I mean, 2,300 days.
Oh, that's right. The convergence of all three.
Yeah, 1,260 days and 2,520 days simultaneously, more or less. And so the author says, this comes up and I want to put up the book cover here. So the author says, here then is the common meeting place for the 3 great lines. The quote-unquote 7 times commencing at the first captivity terminate in 1792. The 2,300 years of the vision of cleansing commencing with the pushings of the Medo-Persian ram terminate in 1792. And the 3 times and a half of the papal horn commencing at the Justinian era terminate in 1792. Now, considering that these several lines are but different phases of the same idolatrous confederacy, we should expect that they would have a common terminating point. When the world power falls at the close of the 7 times, it must needs be that the horn that rose out of its last head should fall with it. And when these 2 blasphemous and persecuting powers fall, what should we expect? But that the sanctuary which they had defiled and desolated should begin to be cleansed and rebuilt. And so prophecy assures us it shall be, for it distinctly places all 3, the taking away of dominion from the world power, the termination of the reign of the papal horn, and the cleansing of the sanctuary, at the coming of the Ancient of Days. And therewith agrees the fact. The best consideration we are able to give to the various starting points of these 3 lines leads us to the conclusion that they all run out at this epoch. And what an epoch it is! How manifestly judicial! How fearfully retributive! It let fall the hoarded vengeance of ages upon the papal kingdoms. Unless history is a lie, then the great white throne was set up, and then the world power discrowned, the blood of the saints upon its skirts was put to the bar. When the traveller sees all the great lines of traffic and intercourse converging a short distance in advance of him, at the point, says he, where all these highways appear to meet must stand the capital of the country. He may not see it at the moment. The mountains, or the woods, or the mists of evening may hide it from his view. But there, says he, it must stand. And he knows he has only to go forward a little farther, and its towers and bulwarks will rise dark against the sky, and its portals will open to bid him welcome. Or, when the astronomer beholds, as he does, all the stars of heaven converging on a point indefinitely remote in space, at that point, he says, though so far off that no eye, no telescope can discern it in the abyss of the firmaments, there must be some body of colossal size, some luminary of transcendent splendor. For see how, from every quarter of the sky, with steps slow and majestic, the orbs of heaven are marching down upon it. There must be the center of the material universe. We also so conclude, when we see all the great lines of prophecy from the various starting points in the past converging on this era. This, say we, is no common era. This must be a grand crisis in the providence of God. This must be a grand crisis in the history of the world. Some principle of most momentous issue is here receiving its initiative, and we have only to stand aside and wait till the work in progress has been developed, and then it may be that we shall find ourselves in presence of that new heavens and new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. Yeah, that's a moment to wait for, right? To see the new heaven and the new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. So from what? Why do I hear myself again?
Yes, Jörg.
Yeah?
Oh, no. It's, I just wanted to agree with you. It's an amazing creation that God has made, yes?
Yeah? But
it's...
I hear my echo. I'm getting crazy of this. What is this?
I don't know. I'm not hearing any echo. Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you using loudspeakers also somewhere?
Yeah, I did. Is that better?
Yeah, because it's when you hear yourself, I'm getting nuts of that. I don't like that.
No doubt.
Okay, so it's better now. You switch it off now.
Yeah.
God, no, what I wanted to say is, it's interesting to read this, but when you read this, so for the first time, like I just read it, it seems like, well, where is the time then? Isn't that there where we should be right now? Hasn't all this come into fruition right now? When will it come into fruition? It seems like, it's a little bit like what we talked about yesterday. When these three epochs, the 1,260 days, the 2,300 days, and the 2,520 days have different starting points in history, but have all the same ending point, and that's 1792, then what is the time of 1792 about? What is all the time after that? Is that the time, as read in Revelation chapter 10, if I'm not mistaken, verse 6, when there is time no more? Because Jesus hasn't come yet, has he? So it is very difficult, at least for me, to understand where exactly are we. So when we are reading prophecy and we say that all these prophecies have been fulfilled, it will be interesting to learn in what time are we. And so maybe this comes in the next chapter when it speaks about the length of the Judgment Day, because we are maybe in the Judgment Day. What do you think?
Agreed. We must be approaching it at some point. The day of the great and terrible day of the Lord, as it says.
As long as it's not the judgment that the Seventh-day Adventists advertises, then I'm agree.
I don't know what they advertise. They say that Jesus has gone into the holiest of holies and is making his judgment in heaven, right? Is that what you're speaking of?
Yeah, they got a specific term on it, but I cannot remember it at the moment.
Yeah, it is. I've known it so well.
Is it the mercy seat?
No. Investigative judgment.
investigated.
Oh, for the Seventh-day Advent.
Yeah, that's what Michael meant. Yeah, it's about the Seventh-day Adventists who speak of the investigative judgment that started, quote-unquote, in 1844. So instead of 1844, we would, of course, have it then here in 1792, because we're just speaking of a different ending age, not 1844. And the Seventh-day Adventists teach that this time when Jesus went from the holy place into the most holy place in heaven, and when he starts his investigative judgment over there. I don't know. Nobody can verify that because nobody is in heaven. Only one is in heaven, the one who came from heaven, Jesus Christ, but no man has ever gone into heaven, so nobody can verify what they say is true.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Isn't that true? You know, when we have good friends die or family members die, we say, oh, yeah, he's gone to be with the Lord, but really we're in waiting. We're just resting.
Yeah, sleeping.
So, sleeping, yeah. It's common misconception, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, that's my understanding too. When we die, we go to sleep, and we will be woken up at the resurrection. Hopefully, the first.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because the first resurrection is for the righteous, and the second resurrection is for the judgment of the wicked. And I want to be part of the first resurrection, and I guess that you and Michael share this thought. But it's quite difficult to understand this book and see where in history does James Edgar Wylie put us now. So maybe we will get a better understanding when we continue in reading chapter 14, where it speaks of the length of the judgment day. So then I'm going to continue here. And sorry for that I got mad about the noise, but you know, when I hear myself constantly in echo, that is really annoying. So.
Yeah, well, you know, no excuse, brother.
Well, you turn it down. It's all right now. I don't hear myself anymore.
Yep.
So let's continue. The point of convergence of the three chronological lines is not the end. Ah, okay. There already is a little bit more understanding for us, right? It is only the beginning of the end. It closes the bondage and ushers in the terrors and wonders of the Exodus. Now, this is an explanation that I can live with. It also gives a little bit of the understanding that there is time no more, right? Every prophecy would have been come to fruition or fulfillment in 1792, and then we live in the day of the time of the judgment. Then the sanctuary is justified. The sentence of desolation and overthrow passes over from the church to the world power. The dominion of that power ceases, though its existence is prolonged for a season, and an era of retribution and vengeance opens upon it, the shaking namely foretold by the prophets of the old heavens and the old earth, in order that those new heavens and that new earth which cannot be shaken may be set up. This is the great judgment day, which is to close the dispensation of the 7 times. And the question which here arises is, how long shall that judgment day continue? It's probably not a 24-hour day, huh? We think we have data in the prophetic scriptures for the solution of this question. It is not reasonable to expect that this powerful system will be overthrown in a day. Idolatry has existed on the earth ever since the beginning. Well, if I can make a short comment here, when we take the French Revolution as at the ending of the prophecy of the 1260 days, the 2300 days and the 2520 days, and that is the moment when the system will be overthrown, because the author says it is reasonable to expect that this powerful system will be overthrown in a day. Not reasonable, so it will not be overthrown in a day. Then it means that from that time on it is going on. Now, what do we have from the time of the French Revolution on? We have had the powerful revolutions in the 19th century, about 1848. We had the founding of republics and democracies, especially republics, in the 19th century. like, for example, the latest that we know of from the Italian, when they put away the king and Garibaldi took away the papal power of the papal states in 1870, because Italy then became a republic, right? We have Spain that became a republic later on. We have Germany that became a republic in 1871. We have the United States of America that became a republic in 1789. So that's 3 years before 1792. It's interesting that when you see that, because a republic has a different distribution of power than you have in a monarchy, right? In a monarchy, you have a supreme head, the monarch, the king or the queen, that is ruling the country. In a republic, you have most of the time a elected head, like you are supposed to have in the United States of America. That these elected heads, as well in America as in Germany and in every other democratic or republic state today, is just a joke and is not the way it is one thing, but the position is that way. So that means that all the old power structure has been overthrown. The old power structure was the ruling of the monarchs, the ruling of the noble people, as they call themselves, up to that day. And they have been overthrown. And this also makes sense historically when you consider the time between 1815 and 1822, where you have had 3 secret meetings under the heading of the Jesuits, meaning the Congress of Vienna, of Chieri and Verona. And in there, as far as I am informed, and I think I'm quite well informed, I'm just not 100% informed, but I know that they were spoken about that the monarchs of Europe were, how do you say that, assured by the Jesuits, well, you have to give away your secular power, but you will at least stay alive. We will keep your bloodlines on, you will still be in a good position, but you will not have the secular power anymore. You have to give that to parliaments, like you have in Belgium, where I live, where we have a monarchy, but it's also a democracy. The king only has a status like a president of a country, like in Germany, where you have no king or Kaiser, but you have a president who is just a representative character. You have the same in Spain, you have the same in Denmark, you have the same in the Netherlands, you have the same in Norway, you have the same in Sweden, you have the same in a few other countries. I don't name them all now. They still are monarchies, but they are quote-unquote democratic monarchies. That means the power, the temporal power, is taken away from those heads of state, from those kings and queens. And that was the goal of the 3 treaties, or the 3 councils, meetings of the Jesuits with the nobility, with the European nobility between 1815 and 1822. And they agreed on that, and then all of a sudden something happened. All the old governments, the kingdoms fell, and the people took the rule over. Isn't that, quote-unquote, kind of a judgment day for all these people? I mean, whenever you guys have something to fill in here, I'm not sitting here making a monologue. This is all of a sudden my understanding
that's true,
from this reading here.
That's very true, because in the Bible it says that we should establish the throne in righteousness. Now, what does that mean in a practical sense? We should establish our governments in righteousness through Christ. That's what it means. Then God can bless the country. That's how I understand it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That would mean a true democracy, where the people choose their own government, and you have no hierarchy in that regard. Where you have a true government of the people, by the people, for the people, as the United States of America claims to have, which she doesn't. But if you had that, that would be the point, right?
Yeah. I think so. I mean, look at the history we were looking at in the other book we just read, about Great Britain, what they did. You know, they weren't perfect either, but they did try and establish that throne in righteousness, and God blessed it. That's the way I look at it. You know, they weren't perfect. None of us are perfect. But if we are able to uphold a righteous law and place Christ back on the throne, let's put it that way, if it's even possible. And apparently it's not that easy to do.
No, it's not, because man is not made or not is not raised in the understanding to put himself aside and put Christ first and himself beneath it. That's the problem.
Yep, that's right. That only comes through discipline and understanding in the scriptures, I think.
And therefore we
That's
have too
true.
many people in our governments who are not Christians, who don't believe in the Bible, who don't believe in Jesus Christ, who don't believe in our Father in heaven. Therefore we have that too much. But it is, of course, in the way that James Atkin Wylie writes this, all of a sudden to me a bit of an understanding that we are living in a time of a judgment right now, because the monarchs have failed. Now the church is more or less freed, and what does the church do with it? I mean, I don't even know if that expression is right. What does the church do with it? I mean, the church is still, the true church is still under persecution, and it will come again under persecution at the end of this, but that's probably the time when Jesus Christ turns up again. In the very last days. That's why he asked, will I find faith on the earth when I come back? When I return, will I find faith on the earth? Isn't that the way that he expressed himself? Okay, let's not go into too much thinking of what it is and what it could be. Maybe it all comes clear the farther we read, but at the point where we came here to the book, it is not reasonable to expect that this powerful system will be overthrown in a day. So when we are speaking of a period of time from 1792 to now 2019 and ongoing, that is that period of time. And there has to be a development in this, because, you know, it will not be overthrown in a day. It is developing a complete overthrow. How is that overthrow developing? Well, maybe we read in the coming sentences. Now let's just see if the author shares it with us. Idolatry has existed on the earth ever since the beginning. For the past 25 centuries it has been dominant in the world. It has sat entrenched behind the whole military power and the entire political craft of empire. Philosophy, literature, and art have striven unceasingly to conceal its falsehood, to veil its grossness, and to rivet its chains. The very length of time it has existed on the earth has become to it a protection, by creating a powerful and venerable prestige in its favor. That a single blow should suffice to loosen its hold upon society and shake its stronghold into ruin is inconceivable. The first exodus was not accomplished by one plague, neither will the second. The final judgment will come on in a series of terrific woes. Bolt after bolt will be shot from the great white throne, and not till the seventh has fallen will the system sink into its burning grave. We shall afterwards see, when we come to consider more particularly this epoch, that the judgment proceeds by 7 very definitely marked stages of destruction. And even though God could overthrow the idolatrous world power by a single stroke, yet he would not. He would give it time to repent. He will not overthrow even great Babylon without affording her an opportunity of escaping the threatened and merited vengeance. That opportunity may be afforded to little purpose. Still, it will demonstrate how that's a different...
Incorrigibly.
yeah, what does that mean?
Good question. I'll look it up.
Oh, you don't even know. That's interesting.
Of course not.
Then I'm less ashamed that I don't know the explanation of this word.
Of course not. There are so many words we've lost, brother.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
You know, the dumbing down of America. Come on, man.
Yeah, Charlotte Eiserbeiter. Yeah. So still it will demonstrate how incorrigibly and unrepentingly wicked she is. And it will serve to vindicate the holiness of God and the awful severity of her destruction. The pause thus afforded will serve this further end. It will enable men to mark the omnipotence of the judge and note the order and grandeur of a drama which it is meant that all ages of the future should remember, and that the Church should celebrate in her songs till the very end of time. Daniel briefly, John more fully, describes the dispensations of the times of the end, or time of the end. Let us turn to the 12th chapter of the former.
Oh, wow. So here's the definition quick, okay? If you're ready.
Yeah, okay.
Incorrigibly, to a degree of depravity beyond all means of amendment.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says in very small letters here, Roscommon. I don't know anything about Roscommon, but I could look that up too, but I don't think we need to.
Good.
Yeah.
So, Daniel briefly, John more fully describes the dispensations of the time of the end. Let us turn to the 12th chapter of the former. So that is Daniel then, of course. Michael stands up. There is a time of trouble such as never was. Many that sleep in the dust of the earth awake, some to be clothed with shame, others to shine in the eternal honor. And these troubles are seen to end in the deliverance of all who are found written in the book. Here evidently is the time of the end. Indeed, we are expressly told that it is so. We hear one inquiring at the man clothed in linen who is seen standing on the waters of the river, "How long shall it be to the end of these wonders?" The man clothed in linen holds up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swears that it shall be for a time, times, and a half. We are distinctly told that, at the end of the time, times, and a half, all these wonders shall take place. But let us mark that the time, times, and a half are the third chronological line. We have already determined its length. It runs on, as we have said, for 1260 years. It embraces the entire period of the domination of Antichrist. It begins at the constitution of the 10 kingdoms of modern Europe in AD 532, with the Justinian law, and ends at the subversion of these kingdoms in 1792. By the way, the Justinian law, interesting, I just put out a picture on that. No, not by coincidence, but because this evening I'm going to read Rulers of Evil in German, and we are in need of the same picture right there. This is the Ius Civilis. This is the basis of the canon law of the Roman Catholic law of Justinian, which is mentioned here in 532, where the author puts the beginning of the time of the 1260 days. And as I said already yesterday, maybe the author is right with this assumption, maybe the author is wrong in this assumption, and we are still in this period. I don't know. But this is the Codex Justinian that you just saw, which is referred to here in 533 AD. So from then, the time of 1260 days runs on and ends in 1792. But the author continues to say, why is this line again introduced here? Now, obviously, to serve as a baseline on which to measure the two subordinate and supplementary lines, which were about to be announced to Daniel for the first time. These two periods are given in the end of this chapter, and nowhere else. The man clothed in linen who had just announced the end of the 1260 years as the time for these wonders continues, quote, And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days, which means years, which is from Daniel 5:11. Is that mentioned?
That's correct. Yep.
Is it correct?
Chapter 5. It looks like. Yep.
Yeah. This line is 30 years longer than the line given in the 7th verse. If it begins at the same time with the other, the conclusion is inevitable that it carries us 30 years beyond the other. But most manifest it is that it does begin at the same time with that in verse 7. It begins when the daily sacrifice is taken away and the abomination that maketh desolate is set up. But so, too, as we have already shown, do the 1260 years. The daily or continual sacrifice here foretold to be taken away was not that presented on the Jewish altars, but the daily or continual sacrifice of the Christian church. Christ abideth a priest continually, and his sacrifice is a continual sacrifice. Having paid the ransom for all, he placed it as the great high priest in the heavenly place, the monument of redemption that was... Sorry, I missed my line here. The monument of a redemption that was forever, that each individual, as a priest, might present it unto the Father as a ransom for his soul. And this is taken from The Mystery of God Finished by Reverend Tresham D. Gregg. Very full and excellent exposition of the continual sacrifice and the abomination that maketh desolate in Dr. Gregg's work. But this continual priest and continual sacrifice Popery took away by the substitution of another priest and another sacrifice, and the erection within the church visible of an idolatry that banished God's presence and spirit from it, converted its ordinances into channels of death instead of life, and so made the sanctuary desolate. At this doleful epoch, prefigured by the cessation of the literal sacrifices and the destruction of the temple by the Roman power, do both lines begin. And seeing they have a common starting point, it follows that the last carries us 30 years beyond the first. What event signalizes its end is not said. But here we are not permitted to pause. For the man clothed in linen who was upon the waters of the river immediately adds, Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,330 days, years. Now, here are 45 years more. Here is a supplementary period of 75 years in all. These 75 years are manifestly to be added to the 1260 years, which end in 1792, with the coming of the Ancient of Days and the sitting of the Judgement to take away the dominion of the papal horn, to consume and destroy it to the time of the end. We are much disposed to conclude that these 75 years mark the limits of the Judgment Day, and that when they have run out, an era of blessing will open upon the world and the Church, for it is said, quote, Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to 1,330 days. Unquote. Years, as we understand it, because it's prophetically. What tends to strengthen this belief in our mind is the fact that, when we turn to the rise of the papacy, we find a margin of precisely the same breadth. The political constitution of the 10 Romano-Gothic kingdoms was completed under Justinian in AD 530 through 534, and the universal lordship of the Bishop of Rome was completed under Phocas in AD 605, 604, 608. That's a period that I always speak of, when Boniface III was given the power, the spiritual power of the Church of Rome, the Eastern Church, and the Church of Constantinople at the time. Both the political and the spiritual papacy rose by stages. and each stage was marked by an imperial edict conveying its additional increase of power. But there is no denying that the two stages that stand in history as the most marked and prominent is the era of Justinian and the era of Phocas. Under Justinian, the political papal supremacy was established. Under Phocas, the spiritual papal supremacy was established, as I just explained. Under the first, the times and laws were changed, and under the second, the continual sacrifice was taken away. Between these two events, there was an interval of 75 years. The author has minutely traced in his papacy the several stages of the rise of Rome and has quoted the various edicts thereto appertaining. So we are speaking of the time between 530 something, 6 in the beginning of the 7th century here, 530, 534, 604, 608. He speaks of 75 years here in between. There was an interval of 75 years. That's what he speaks about here. Okay? Now it is not reasonable to think that, as the Church was 75 years in going into her papal captivity, she will be 75 years in coming out of her papal captivity, and that as the 10 kingdoms arose 75 years before the full legal recognition of the spiritual supremacy of Rome, so the breaking up of these 10 kingdoms at the French Revolution may be found to proceed by an equal number of years, some decisive blow upon the spiritual hierarchy of Rome. Daniel conducts us to the very threshold of the Exodus, but he does not show us that Exodus itself. He shows us the people, their loins girded, their shoes on their feet, and their staff in their hand, eating their Passover in haste and ready to depart on the morrow. But he offers no description of the events of that morrow. He shuts up the words and seals the book even till the time of the end. He leaves it to John to unseal the book and to reveal at length the terrors and mighty wonders of the coming up out of Egypt. Nevertheless, Daniel's prophecy is the most extensive and complete in the sacred volume. The visions of the seer of Patmos extend only over the last half of the 7 times. Those of the man greatly beloved stretch over the whole of the 7 times, comprehending the entire history of the world power from its rise to its fall. The period which Daniel's prophecy embraces is emphatically the world's night. It is the hour of the power of darkness. It is the mystery of divine providence. It is the Church's period of humiliation, and of the humiliation of her Lord, whose dominion as her head and as the world's sovereign was veiled throughout it. His prophecy spans the dreary gulf of years which separates the theocracy from the millennium. But let us mark how his prophecy ends. It ends with a benediction. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1330 days. These words are the daybreak. They are a star in the east, sent to tell the earth that her king is coming, before whose face every oppressor shall flee, and under whose scepter all the kindreds and tribes of the world shall dwell in peace. Wow, that was...
There comes a big Maranatha.
Yeah, that was a big part that we read now, the first part of the book.
Ooh, we just finished the first part of the book. Interesting.
Yeah, and as I know, James at Wylie, it had at least 3 parts, I guess, huh? I don't know. I don't have the content of the book right in front of me right now.
No, I don't either. I thought it was. I guess I don't know either. I can't tell.
Part 1 was the bondage, so this brought a final to the bondage, and then we have part 2, which is the Exodus,
and that's it.
And that's it. So it's 2 parts. So we are going now to
We're
see.
halfway.
Almost, yeah, page 201. Yeah, also in contents of pages, of course. Yeah, we are. So let's see. Length of the Judgment Day. Well, that was interesting, huh? Wasn't it?
Sure is.
Hey, Michael, are you still there?
Yes, I have muted my microphone.
Okay.
Yes, I'm quite concentrated.
Yeah, me too. And I have to tell you, it's a shame that I didn't have time to prepare this book reading ahead of the reading that we are doing here. But I think it is really something quite interesting, the book. I mean, this Exodus, and especially the understanding that James Edgar Wylie gives us of these three prophecies ending in 1792, despite of all the stuff that we have been reading in Albert Close's book, because, you know, he used many dates, many years to end this prophecy and end that prophecy. I have to tell you, honestly, that this explanation that James Edgar Wylie just gave, even though I'm quite sure I have to read it over again to understand it more fully and more complete, makes the most sense of them all. And I am so glad that James Edgar Wylie shows us that all these three prophecies, the 1260, 2300 and 2520, end at the same moment, and that same moment is not 1844. That is what I am most glad about, because I always had my doubts on the righteousness of that teaching by the Seventh-day Adventists. Yeah? And I see my doubts now absolutely confirmed. I don't get the whole story of James Edgar Wylie yet, I have to tell you. This is not an easy book. It is not an easy book for a native English speaker. So it is surely not an easy book for someone who is not a native English speaker like me. And it's probably not an easy book for you who are watching this video right now and say, what's he reading there? What does he mean? What is he talking about? Well, you know, you can get the book for free from the internet, download it, and read it along with me, and read it once, read it twice, maybe read it even thrice. Understanding never comes with the very first time that you read it, and then you will see that the author makes much more sense than the teaching of the Seventh-day Adventist does. And you know what also satisfies me with the explanation of the ending of the three periods in 1792 by James Edgar Wylie? Since he says in this book that all these three periods end on the same time, we don't have different ending times, because we were always looking for, okay, that year happened that, and that was fulfilled, and that year happened that, and that was fulfilled. Yeah? Speaking about the time 606, 1866. We don't even need that anymore when we understand what James Edgar Wylie told us here. Yeah? That we have the ending of it all in 1792. We have one ending date. So therefore we don't need the discussion anymore. Was it 1798, as the Seventh-day Adventists tell us, because they speak of 538 through 1798. Why did they do that? Oh, because this one general or whatever came into Rome in the time and protected the Pope. And that was the time, the starting time of the 1260 years, the Seventh-day Adventists teach. And that came up to 1798, but 1798 is when General Berthier, who was under the command of Napoleon, went into the Vatican and took the Pope captive. And they said that is the time the 1260 days ended. And I always claimed it is the time that when Emperor Phocas gave the full spiritual power to Pope Boniface III, that was in 606, 607. James Edgar Wylie mentions rightfully the period between 604 and 608, which includes 606, 607. And that the ending time then was 1866, with the retreat of the protecting French forces from the Vatican. Then when Garibaldi came and took away the papal states and took away the temporal power of the Pope. that was then between 1866 and 1870. Now we don't need all this anymore. With the understanding that James Atkin Wylie gives us, we have the year 1792, and from there on we have the time of the judgment that rings in the time of the Exodus. And that is an understanding that I'm very grateful for that I have so far. I hope it makes sense what I just said to you, but this is the way that I understand it right now. We don't need all these different ending dates. We have one ending date. We have different starting dates, yeah, because we have a period of 2,520 days, we have a period of 2,300 days, and we have a period of 1,260 days. But they all have one and the same ending date, and that's 1792. And that, to me, makes much more sense than anything else I've studied all my quote-unquote Christian life. How about you guys?
Yeah, and if you add 75 years to 1792, you get 1867.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's another interesting point, yeah. That's right.
I think that's a valid point.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I used to think that there are several starting points, because I think that for unknown reason, the Bible gave us different starting points to how can I say it in English?
Otherwise, say it in German. I try to help you translate.
No. I'm trying. To validate itself. You see, if you got one prophecy, then you can tell, okay, it happened, maybe by accident. But we know that the Bible has got no accidents, and there are no circumstances, but it's prophecy, it's ordained. And so if you got several starting points, for example, 3 starting points, then you get the absolute proof. Because it's also a sign of a divine prophecy, because the prophecy fulfills itself in a way like a chain reaction, you see. Mm-hmm. And so I think that even boasts the Bible, the biblical prophecy, because the Bible is the only religious book known to me where it mainly concerns about prophecy, and so it's the only book which can prove itself. All other religious books are claims, but you cannot get any proof, because they do not make any prophecy regarding years and dates and things which shall happen then. And so I think that's quite extraordinary if there are several starting points, but they all accumulate into one ending point, so that everybody can see, who's living in our days, retrospective, that there is a kind of divine prophecy which has been fulfilled, and it cannot be any kind of by accident. If you think about the example of the ant in the universe, and now you have to calculate it thrice, because there are several starting points, and so I think that's the best I can explain it at this moment in my English.
Mm-hmm. Well, it makes sense what you say. I don't know about Bret. What do you think about the subject? Oh, Bret is
okay. First, okay. I gotta unmute my mic. Well,
please.
I was just looking up some scripture, and it dawns on me that many of these prophecies were not even alluded at all in the pulpits at all. Like, the Bible's already fulfilled and everything's done, and all we are is Gentiles, and we're just sitting around singing hymns and doing ceremonies, and never mind what the Bible has to say, and just, sit down, shut up, and dress nice, and don't make any noises, and just be part of the congregation, how bogus our church. I don't know. That's my experience, is that we've been lied to so bad when it comes to the biblical truth. And, Jesus even said, take great heed that no man deceive you. So, yeah, we've been deceived. And once you get over it, you start looking at different points of view. Okay, so Seventh-day Adventists, yeah. Okay, so some of what they teach actually makes some sense, Some of it does. It actually makes a lot more sense than everybody else. So yeah, it draws you in. But then the problem is you have this prophetess, of course, and as we all know, that this is just... and then, of course, the Millerites that came before the Adventists. And yeah, keep the seventh day, keep it holy. Yeah, it's just, Christendom has become just a gigantic mess. It's just really, really confusing to try to explain anything. We all have to be independent and step back from having any fellowship in our studies in the regard that we have to understand what the Bible is trying to tell us. So I think it's very important to have a sectarian type attitude and to just kick everything to the curb and just get right down to Scripture and start studying on your own and come to your own conclusions, come to your own path, so to speak, with the Lord, and ask the Lord to intercede with you and show you specifically what you're looking for, so you can start making sense out of everything, because who knows what kind of a mess you're in, dear listener. I know I was in huge mess.
I think that just happened with the reading today, because I always knew that what the Seventh-day Adventists taught was not correct. But I couldn't lay my finger on what exactly wasn't correct, I couldn't specify.
Yeah, but let's not blame the Seventh-day Adventists.
No, I'm not.
Because they're just as bad as any other sect, if we may call it that, right?
Yeah.
And they have done a tremendous work, yes, but it doesn't mean that they're without error, does it?
No, it shows that we should not put our trust in them. Like we should not put our trust in man, but we should put our trust in Jesus Christ.
Well, the scripture I was looking up was really interesting. I'm going to start in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 at the second half of verse 10. Mm-hmm. But we beseech you, we beg you, brethren, that ye increase more and more, and that ye study to be quiet, and to do your own business, and to work with your own hands as we commanded you, that ye may walk honestly towards them that are without, and that ye may have lack of nothing. But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that ye sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so them also which sleep in Jesus will God bring with him. For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain unto the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we which are alive and will remain, shall be caught up together with them in the air, in the clouds, and meet the Lord in the air. And so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore, comfort one another with these words. Interesting to read this again right now, because, yeah, we all have to study on our own. We all have to be independent and come to our own conclusions on these matters, because there's too much opinion. You know, these dogmatic teachings behind the pulpits have really done a number on many of us. I know it's done a number on me. So that's my 2 cents.
It just makes sense after reading this part of the Great Exodus today to understand all of a sudden that maybe an elder of the church can tell you the truth, but no quote-unquote congregation. No, as you called it, sect. Yeah, because the Seventh-day Adventists are a sect, as is every Protestant denomination is a sect. As the Roman Catholic Church, by the way, is the biggest sect of them all. But
the mother.
Yeah, because the Roman Catholic Church was the first church that parted from true Christianity in 321 AD. Because the Roman Catholic Church rose out of the historical fact that Emperor Constantine made quote-unquote Christianity the state religion of pagan Rome in the time. So that church that emerged out of that was the Roman Catholic Church. So she left the true apostolic church, which she claims she is, and she is not. She left that to become the church of pagan Rome. So she actually is a sect when you take the true Christian church as the true church, as the real church, and everything that comes out of her is a sect. Sector, yeah? It's another part of it. That's what sect actually means, right? It's just another part. And of course, from the self-proclaimed mother church, Roman Catholic Church, you have other sects. And that made the Roman Catholic Church the mother of harlots. But true Christianity still is where it all derives from. Without true apostolic Christianity, as it manifests itself in the New Testament through the teachings of Paul and all the other apostles, we would never have had the true church. And the Roman Catholic Church is just a sect from that true church, and all her affiliates are just a sect of her. So, we are always in error as true Bible-believing Christians when we elevate one of these sects above the Word of God. But it is so easy because we are looking for comfort in these sects. We are looking for comfort in the religions that we go to. We are looking for comfort when we go on Saturday or on Sunday, on what day ever, into the quote-unquote church and listen to the pastor or priest or reverend or whatever stands there in front of the pews and is spreading his dogma. The problem is, it is his dogma. It is not the dogma of the Bible. And I think with the understanding and the reading that I got today, at least from reading the Great Exodus, I understood that it is so dangerous to put your trust into what sect whatsoever, into what denomination whatsoever out there, whether it's Roman Catholicism, because there are many people who believe in Roman Catholicism, whether it's Lutheranism, Calvinism, Seventh-day Adventism, Methodism, you name them all, you know. Put them all on a sack and hit on it, you always hit the right one, you know. They're all the same in that regard. We should never ever put our trust in any kind of congregation like that. We should only put our trust in the Lord and in the word that He provides us with, the 1611 King James Bible. And when we study that long enough, and when we just listen to a brother, because this is what I think James Atkin Wylie presents. I mean, that's what he represents to me. He is a Christian brother because he was not part of any denomination. He was not part of any church. He was a historian. He was a scholar of the Bible. And what he understood from the Bible, he put into books and words so that we in the 21st century are in the lucky position that we can open books from him, like books of him, like in this case the Great Exodus, and read it and understand when the brother in Christ is speaking to us. Because all the pastors and priests and reverends and whatever in the pews are not our brothers. That's the point.
Yes.
They are not our
Yes.
brothers. They are in an organized religion. And James Atkin Wylie is not. He is a brother. He is a brethren who writes what his understanding that he has learned from the Bible in these books and shares this with us. That's the big difference between someone like James Atkin Wylie or any other author for that regard, like Henry Grattan Guinness, like even Charles Haddon Spurgeon, who also was not part of any quote-unquote congregation. And that's what we have to look for. And that's why we find the truth in those people instead of anyone who is affiliated with any kind of congregation, any kind of denomination, any kind of sect. That's the point that I want to make.
Well, just simply put, Jörg, just learning one little point of prophecy, such as the 3.5 years, the 42 months, the times and half a time, this point alone helps to understand the book of Revelation, the book of Daniel, and, the rest of the entire New Covenant. It really, really starts the ball rolling. And without these little pushes from the Spirit, we're in deep trouble. If we didn't have this type of teaching, we wouldn't have any kind of understanding who the Antichrist is, would we?
That's right.
Well, I mean, Second Thessalonians explains it very well. But it really helps to have the full, the coming of the Lord, the revelation, the religion of revelation, from what I understand out of this little study. It's an entirely different religion, isn't it? It's not the same as what we've been told. You must discover it for yourself, listener. Don't let anyone deceive you on it. Jesus told us that, and we got to really stick to it. At least that's what I try and do, brothers.
Yeah, good point. And time to wrap it up and say goodbye. And next time we will start with the second part of the book that we came to today, which is called, let me have a look at it, The Great Exodus Part 2. The Exodus itself, because in a nutshell, that's the time we live in today.
Ooh, the crisis of the church and of the world. Yes, that's what it is. Crisis time. Yeah, we're in a crisis, all right. Boy, wouldn't it be nice to have Tom Fress with us on one of these?
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's true, but... Anyway, good time to wrap it up, brother. Thank you for reading, Jörg. Really appreciate your inputs. And Michael, thank you again for being with us.
You're welcome, Bret. Anytime.
Looking forward to next time. God bless and bye-bye.